Good afternoon, everybody, or happy lunchtime, however you want to call this period. Welcome back. It's the new series of We Are Careers, and we've got all change today, which we'll kind of talk about in a second. You'll notice some new faces on the programme, and we'll do all those introductions in a second. For those who've not watched the show before, my name is Chris Webb. I'm a higher education careers professional and registered career development professional. Bit of a mouthful there with the CDI. And normally, you think, okay, well, I'm normally joined by the same co-host each week. It's normally Sabiha. She's not with us this week, so we've got a very, very lovely stand-in co-host this week. So and that's Victoria Geary. So Vic, very good to have you with us.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Vic. Thank you for having me, Chris. It's lovely to be here and to be co-hosting. Hopefully everyone can see and hear me. Give us a like and a share and a little comment if you can hear what we're saying. I'm Vic. Some of you might recognise me from my incessant LinkedIn posting. I'm based in Stockport, South Manchester. I'm currently working from home still, so I've moved into my lounge just for a little bit of a change of scenery over lunchtime. Let us know where you're watching from so we can see where everyone's coming in from. I've been working in careers for about 12 years now, across schools, colleges, and now in higher education. I also work as a freelance careers consultant, doing all sorts of interesting projects, all with the aim of raising the profile of the career sector, us, and most importantly, making sure that everyone who needs it has access to brilliant careers education and guidance. So that's pretty much me, really. Hi.
Good stuff. Thanks, Vic. We'll come back to you in a second if that's okay. So we're just going to see if we've got some people commenting. We absolutely have. So we've got some people with us. That's always really nice to see. So hello to everybody in the chat. As Vic said, give us a like, give us a share. Give us a comment in the chat thread. Just let us know you're here. Let us know where you're watching us from today. It's always really nice to see where our kind of fellow careers professionals are from over the country. And at the start of the new series of We Are Careers, we're really, really pleased because it's all change. We've got a bit of a focus. We've got our outgoing CDI CEO, Jan Ellis. So again, we'll give a huge thank you for all the work that Jan's done sort of again at the end of the show. But what it does mean is that a perfect way to start our new series is by introducing our new Chief Executive, David Morgan. So we're going to come on to David in a minute, but just a quick hello, a quick welcome, David, whilst you're here.
Hello. Yeah, good to see you. And love to be on the show.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us, David. So we're going to be talking with David today about a range of things that Vic's going to come on to in a second. We've also got all of the usual features. So we've got our CDI news, our main news. And again, if you want to kind of get involved with the show as you're watching, please do pop those comments in the chat. We'll pick them up as we go through the show. So an action-packed half hour as always. Vic, back to you.
Hi. So, hello, David. It's great to have you here. Before we come on to some questions that I'm sure people have got plenty of things that they want to ask you, we will start out with the CDI Shout Out of the Week. For our regular viewers, you'll know this. For those watching for the first time, it's great to have you. This is the bit of the show where we celebrate and show support and appreciation for our members. So this week, our first shout out goes to Tristram Hooley and the team who've developed the new CDI framework and all the accompanying resources. I think we can all agree that it's an absolutely fantastic enhancement of the existing framework with the 6 key skill areas for career development, which are grow throughout life, explore possibilities, manage career, create opportunities, balance life and work, and see the big picture. It's just a really accurate reflection of the changing nature of work that we all see in our day-to-day work, and the uncertainty that's facing all of us in this kind of post-COVID world. So yes, big shout out to Tristram and the team. Looking forward to kind of implementing that. We also like to give a bonus shout out to the 28 practitioners who gained RCDP status in the month of April. Congratulations to you all. Welcome to the family. And if you're watching today, please give us a shout out on the comments thread because we'd love to welcome you. So without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to be the person to introduce you formally to our brand new CDI CEO. We do love an acronym, David Morgan. And I'll hand over to you, Chris, so we can start to get to know David a little bit better.
Fantastic. Thanks, Vic. If we'll just keep microphones muted, if that's all right, if we're not speaking, because I'm just seeing some comments in the chat just about a bit of feedback. So not sure where that's coming from. Let us know if you can't hear us on the chat and we'll pick that up. But yes, David, fantastic to have you with us. Now, I know you've kind of given a bit of an introduction already, sort of via email and via sort of Facebook community of practice, but very nice to have you with us. And I guess we always tend to start the show with a bit of a quick intro and a sort of maybe fun fact or kind of good news story for the week that you've kind of experienced. So over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, hi. Nice to be here. Nice to see everyone. It's a pleasure to join as the CEO, Chief Executive actually. But and it's been exactly a month today that I joined the CDI. I was very fortunate to have 3 weeks of listening, learning, and understanding before formally stepping to law on the 1st of May, and still very lucky that Jan Ellis is with us until the end of May. So she's continuing to support and put me through a very rapid and comprehensive induction. So that's fantastic. So, a fun fact. Yeah. So the 3 pictures behind me represent some of the daft things I've done. So 2004, I decided it'd be a great idea to run 3 marathons in a year. So I ran Thailand, London, and New York. Thailand's not up there. And then in 2018, actually, a friend of mine in New Zealand decided that the best way to recover from a heart operation is to run, cycle, and kayak across New Zealand in 2 days in the Kathmandu coast-to-coast race. And decided the only person he could find who was daft enough to say yes to it was me. So that was my last big event, and probably the hardest thing I've ever done, and absolutely worth every minute of it. Particularly when I realised during training that I am terrified of kayaking. I now cannot go out on the water on anything smaller than a cruise ship.
That does seem like a strange choice in hindsight, but I
didn't know at the time. Yeah, it sounded fantastic. I do a lot of running, and I wanted to do more cycling. And kayaking just sounded fun. 70 miles down a major river. 70 kilometers down a major river? Why wouldn't you? But as the training went on, I got to the point I could barely get in the kayak and do it. But I did it and threw myself down and finished last. But I finished. So. Yeah, fun fact.
Fantastic. And you might have kicked off a bit of a trend. So last series, or maybe possibly series 1, we had a real thing about musicians in the career development profession. Loads of our guests were musicians. So this may have kicked off like a physical activity hobby strand. Maybe we'll see what our other guests kind of come up with over the course of the series. We do always like to kind of bring a little bit of positivity as well, because we know that there's quite a lot of negativity in the press often. Any good news stories this week that have kind of happened either to you personally or anything that you've kind of read about that you want to share with our viewers?
Oh, put me on the spot now. There must be something. I went to the office yesterday for the first time, and it was absolutely lovely to get there. And I met Jan in person. So we've been doing everything by Zoom. We only live about 7 miles away from each other, and 130 miles away from the office. So it was lovely to see her and to see Dan in the office and Tracy, 2 of the team. So I think being able to get up there, see the office, and actually meet people, and just it felt like the beginning of all these restrictions starting to ease. We've been going out and having drinks in pub gardens, but it's sunnier, it's getting warmer, and we're able to meet people but do it safely. So it's fantastic.
Wow, fantastic. Really good to hear. We're going to move on. We're going to ask you some questions, hopefully, some probing but not too probing questions. But if you're watching this at home, you're watching this live, obviously if you're watching on record, it's going to be difficult to ask questions, but do keep watching us. If you're watching live, do pop your questions in the chat. So if you've got anything you'd like to ask David, pop them in the Facebook chat. We'll kind of pick them up, and if we've got time, we can kind of go through the comments as we sort of go through the show. But I guess a good starting point, David, we've mentioned, you've already kind of given a little bit of a formal introduction to CDI members sort of via email and through the community of practice. But I guess what would be really useful to start with is, what sort of brought you here to the CDI, to kind of our community, and your professional background, I suppose, how you've kind of ended up at this point. Yeah,
okay. Well, I'll talk about why I was keen to join, and in that wrap in some of my background as well, if that's okay. But there are basically 3 parts to my decision. There was the role, there was the organisation, there was the sector. So if I take those in order, so what attracted me about the role is it built on a lot of things I have done in the past, but added some extra layers. So My last 10 years has been in the education sector, first of all with City and Guilds on the vocational side, and then on AQA, with AQA on the academic side. And a lot of that working with schools and colleges to provide them with support in terms of teaching qualifications and so on. So there's a lot about resource generation, support, large volume events. We did about 2,500 events a year in both those organisations. So a lot of that kind of functional activity is quite similar to what the CDI does. I also had a part of my role at AQA was leadership for the teaching company. So we owned a small business which provides teaching and learning resources to teachers to use in classrooms. And that's an organisation about a similar size to the CDI, and was a membership-based business. So again, that experience of ensuring we've got a compelling membership offer, that it's meeting people's needs, that we're doing it in the right way, was really good. So in terms of my background fitting with this role, it felt like the role built on that. There is another layer when you become chief executive, as I'm discovering there is everything to think about, from major discussions with people like the Careers and Enterprise company down to, okay, let's book a decorator to come in and look and see if we can put a lick of paint around the office. It's top to bottom. It's really quite exhilarating. So that, in terms of the role, felt like it builds on what I've done in the past, adds another layer because of the chief executive, also adds another layer because it's the representation of the sector, and that was really appealing. That championing the sector, which I'll come on to. In terms of the organisation, CDI is a really attractive place to come into. The work that Jan and the team and the board have done over the years, it's in a really good position. It's well established within the career development sector. It's got good connections with government and the governments of the nations. It's also in a good position in terms of what it offers and its financial position. So there's nothing. It's really nice coming in. There's nothing you're going, this is burning. We've got to worry about this. But there is plenty of opportunity, and that's really nice. And that's kind of the sweet spot for me looking to work in an organisation, is somewhere that's got a good reputation, but is looking to evolve and move on further. And my discussions with Jan since I've joined have really all been in that vein. How do I build on the successes of the CDI today and look at the opportunities to add more impact for our members, raise the profile of the sector further. And then that comes on nicely to the sector and working in education. So I haven't worked in the career sector, and that's probably an obvious thing. So might as well acknowledge it. But I have worked in the education sector, and next to that, it feels quite adjacent. So you've got education and training and employment, and the glue that binds those is good career guidance. How do you make those decisions about your next step, but also how do you prepare yourself for the future world of work and your career going forward, so you're prepared for that. I've obviously in my working life had experience of developing team members and so on. Now I'm not going to pretend it's the same as being a professional career development practitioner, but you get a sense of that joy really when you're working with someone and that light bulb moment happens and they can see where the future's going and they're in charge of it and they're taking control of it. So I've always really enjoyed that. With my own children kind of coming through school, apprenticeship for one, university for the other, and those career choices, how they make those decisions is so important. And of course, I'm a client of a career development practitioner, of a career coach, and the value firsthand of seeing that, of getting that support from someone who is a professional in this. And I said in I can't remember if it was the email or the article, but I wouldn't be in this role if it wasn't for him, because he didn't tell me to do anything. What he did was help me realise that I didn't need to leave the job I was in and rush into another job. I was fortunate enough to have the space to go, well, what do I want to do? What are my skills? Where would they best lie? And where do I want to be going for the longer period? And therefore, what should I be looking at? So that's what kind of steered me towards a role like this. And then seeing this role absolutely tick the box and said, that role, that organisation, that sector, that's really impressive.
Fantastic. Thanks, David. I think it's really interesting to kind of hear, as you said, more of the values side of things in terms of how you sort of ended up with us. And I think members will be very keen, I think, to find out a little bit more about your background as kind of we go through that process. But Vic, I know we're going to move on to talk about something I guess slightly related but a little bit different now.
Yeah, we will. Just looking at a few of the comments, people are very impressed at your 3 marathons. I think that's in a year. That's quite incredible. Lots of people coming in from their sunny gardens, which is very lovely. I think everyone will be really heartened to hear you describe us as the glue that kind of binds all of those choices together. It's really nice to hear that from you, and to hear that you've had such a positive experience working with a career coach. We're glad that we can help. So just moving on a little bit more now, it's a month to the day, isn't it? Since you joined us. So in that time, how's that first month been? And being new, as you say, to the sector, how have you got yourself up to speed?
It's been a very busy month. It's been really exciting, really exhilarating. So as I said, it's kind of taken 2 parts. The first 3 weeks, and I think it was really well designed in this respect. That it was an induction of come in, listen, learn. Jan is still the chief executive, and that meant a really fortunate position of being able to take time to listen, to understand, meet the team, meet the board, increasingly meet other people. And now have my first month where I've got that support with Jan and others behind me, and everyone is being incredibly supportive. It's really good, and a very welcoming environment. So that's fantastic. I think in terms of getting up to speed, there's kind of 2 parts. So there's getting up to speed with the CDI as an organisation, and as the leader of that organisation, working into the board, and that's been about meeting the team, understanding what they do. It's much more in line with everything I've worked on in the past. So leading teams is something I've got a lot of experience of, and that's been great. The team have been fantastic. The board, I've met all of the board now. I've got one today, but I've met all the board, and everyone's again really supportive. We're already starting to look at some first initial tweaks we can make to start building on what's already been achieved. So that's probably more the bit I'm more comfortable with and have done before. The second part is getting up to speed with the sector, and I'm really conscious of, and I'm really keen to get up to speed as quickly as possible. Jan again has been giving me the 8-year CDI history, but the longer history of career development, reading everything I can get my hands on. We've been meeting a whole range of people, and that will take time. It will take time to develop that. I'm not going to pretend within a month I've got fully up to speed on quite a complex sector, but I am starting to understand it. I think I've got that surface layer understanding now. Now I need to keep kind of building on that, and it will come over time. Couple of things to help with that really. One is continuing to meet people, and a lot of the organisations we work with, continue to read. But I would like to try and get some time with practitioners of whatever form. Whether you're working with young people in schools, or you're a private practitioner, or you're a careers leader, you're in the careers education side. So I'll put a post on the Facebook group and just say, I can't meet lots of people, but if I could get 3 or 4 one-to-ones with people over the next month or so in different parts of the sector, and then something I like to do ongoing, just have a half-hour, 1-hour call, just understand what your life is like in terms of working in the sector, what your day is like, and so on, and it just helped bring everything together. And it's something I used to do in other roles, as you go and talk to people who are working in the sector, and you just get a better rounding. So I want to keep that education going, and I think that coupled with the fact I've got a different background, different experiences, means I'll be bringing in different ways of thinking and new thinking, but I want to complement that with, okay, well, what's the best thinking within the sector, and like I say, using it to build on what we've got.
Oh, fantastic. And there you go. You heard it here first. A great offer. Keep your eyes peeled on the community of practice for the offer of that kind of one-to-one with David. We're getting some comments through coming in the chat about this. I think people really keen to kind of hear about your interest and your experience, David, which is great. So thank you for that introduction. Particularly, people seem to like the analogy about the glue holding them together. I mean, we all like to hear positive things about our profession. Great. And I guess, kind of coming back to what you mentioned about the complexity of the sector, which I think is a really fair point, certainly for someone coming in from the outside, so much, within it, both in terms of the history of the sector and what's going on at the moment. I guess in terms of your hopes for the career development sector moving forward, we've got a lot of stuff happening at the moment. We've got talk around the new career strategy. We've got the post-16 education and skills bill. We've got various anecdotal examples, all throughout the press of where people feel careers advice is good, where they feel it's not so good. A bit like education, it's something that seems to be talked about, from almost anyone at any level. So I guess from your perspective, David, coming in kind of relatively fresh to the sector, what sort of things are you kind of hopeful for, I suppose, looking to the year ahead?
Yeah, well, to start with the complexity, one of the things I've found is just the language is can be challenging at times. So I've had a little bit of feedback on it, but there are lots of names for things, from careers advisors, career leaders, career coaches, and so on. So I've tended to adopt the career development profession and career development sector, by which I mean everything and everybody within it. So my view, absolutely, and this is following on from Jan, is that we represent all areas of career development and the career development sector, and we will continue to do so. And it is all important. So apologies if I ever used language that suggests that one of the areas is less important or not being considered. That is absolutely not the case, but it's just trying to get the language right in quite a complex environment. In terms of the future, I think, in terms of the overall sector, my goal coming in really is to try and ensure that the career development sector and all the different parts of it are fully recognised for the value they bring to the individuals people work with, but also to the economy. And actually what's something that's starting to come out more is, and also to society, the societal value of it. So that's quite a nice, broad, overarching theme, but that theme of ensuring it's recognised, I think encompasses an awful lot, both in terms of setting the standard and what is a professional career practitioner, what does it mean to be qualified in this sector, and what's the value of that, but also in terms of just the understanding and recognition of, well, why would you go to someone who's got those qualifications? Why would you go to someone who's a professional? And raising that visibility across other areas, and whether that's with the UK government, the nation's governments, and so on, or whether it's just with the public more broadly. So we need to think about how we champion the sector and raise that visibility. In terms of the opportunities, sorry, Chris.
No, go ahead. I was going to say these are some really good points, and just kind of, I think, building on, I guess, what you've just said. We've had a couple of comments in the chat which I think really speak to this. So sorry, Vic, do you want to come in there and just share with what you have back in the comments thread?
Yeah, we've just had a couple of questions really, kind of asking about your kind of initial reaction to the Queen's speech yesterday, and also whether you've got thoughts at the moment on how the CDI might respond to the skills white paper, and the fact that it doesn't actually mention career development professionals explicitly within that. So yeah, what are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, probably a little early to be for me to be specific.
Yeah.
Because those details are where I'm still getting my head around a lot more. But if I take both of those kind of together, I think the Queen's speech is a good example where there's something announced which could be valuable, particularly with the lifelong learning guarantee, and people being able to access that throughout their lifetime. So the potential is really positive. How that manifests itself, and that kind of goes with the white paper as well. It doesn't specifically mention career development, but if it means there's an opportunity where we can build that in, and this is something I've been impressed with the work the CDI and the people we work with has done in the past, is career development doesn't tend to get on the front page very often, and isn't the first thing that's considered sometimes. But there's a lot of work that goes on, with the CDI. There's the Career Development Policy Group, but we're working with a range of partners and others to raise the profile of it. And I'm actually really pleased for Jan that one of the successes recently, she's achieved before she's left, as part of the CDI, working with the Career Development Policy Group, is to change the all-party parliamentary group for skills and employment to be for skills, careers and employment. And it's those kind of opportunities we've got to keep looking for. and champion careers within those. So there's there are three parts for me. There's three parts. There's education, training, and employment, and in the middle there's the careers bit of how do you enable people to move between these. So we've just got to keep banging that drum. Some of that we can do fairly short term. Some things are quite easy to raise and champion because the opportunity is there. Other things, and this is one of the things I'm talking about with the team and thinking about in terms of how we evolve going forward, is how do we start putting together longer term campaigns that will really start raising the profile of it, because you don't go and knock on the door of the Department for Education, for example, and say we think this should change, and it happens. You need to build an evidence base. You need to build an argument. You need to galvanise the sector and build some momentum around things that we want to change for the benefit of the people that we work with ultimately.
No, absolutely, and I think it's a really important point about the lobbying activity that has gone on. And again, just a huge thank you, and I think all of us will say the same, to outgoing Chief Executive Jan Ellis, who's done some incredible work, both visible and some behind the scenes, which people don't always know about in terms of lobbying activity. Our next episode, actually, which we'll talk about at the end, kind of draws on some of this. So no spoiler alert, you'll have to stay to the end, but certainly linked to a lot of what you're saying. But David, thank you so much for feeding back and responding to those questions. It's been absolutely brilliant to have you on. Before we kind of move on to the news section, any kind of final words for members or viewers that might be watching, just in terms of where to keep an eye out for you, I guess, moving forward, and where they can contact you or connect with you, I guess. Yeah,
so I'm on the what's it called, with the Facebook group you're on. I forget the names of all of them. Community of Practice. There's Community of Practice Scotland, so I've joined that Facebook group as well. You can reach me on LinkedIn. There's a huge number of people who've connected over the last few days, and we can continue to do that. And yeah, if you do get a chance to see the post I'll put up on the Facebook group, please do let me know. If you'd be up for a brief conversation, just to understand more about what you individually do, and just let me know kind of where you work and what kind of part of the sector it's in, and it'd be great to catch up.
Fantastic. Thanks, David. And all of the details about where you can connect with David will be in the show resources document, which we'll kind of come on to in a second after we've done the news. So, yeah, David, please feel free to hang around as we go through the news in case there's anything else you want to kind of add in. But without further ado, pass over to Vic. What's kind of happening in the world of the CDI this week?
Well, CDI news. Well, there's nothing else really that could be at number one. We have the new CDI framework. So yeah, as we mentioned at the beginning, the new framework is described 6 career development skills that people need to have positive careers. And it's just, I was at the launch, and just the positivity around it, the fact that it's designed to be all age, to take us all the way through. There's a focus back on looking at primary. It's not there yet, but we're promised it will be, right the way through to HE and adult skills. And I think it's great that we've got that and all the resources that are available. So don't forget to download those. I think Janet College has been posting on LinkedIn links to all the different resources recently. So yeah, don't forget to download those. Second up is the latest CDI training and events calendar has come out by email to members. There are some really good sessions to look out for. I've done some great CPD with the CDI this year. There's an introduction to careers education in primary schools run by Janet College, a series of LMI workshops on the future of jobs from Helen Janotta, and an exploration about how to become international about mental health, in career development practice, and of course the regional members meetings, which will be hosted by, as usual, by our fantastic CDI regional reps. And finally, for the news, the CDI have released 2 really important documents that are really worth checking out for all members, regardless of which area of CIAG that you work in. So one of those is the CDI Code of Ethics, a guide for employers and partners. So it's a really good overview of the benefit to employers and organisations of hiring CDI members over somebody that isn't a member, including the added value that comes from practitioners being part of the professional body and adhering to those code of ethics. So that's useful, particularly for those of you going out doing freelance work. And also, finally, the summary of the CDI blueprint of learning outcomes for professional roles in the career development sector. that is out as well, which explains really well the breadth of our roles, the level, the breadth and depth of our qualifications. So those are two important documents to be aware of. That's it for the news. I've just got a comment that's just come in just from someone who's watching on Facebook, just saying Jan has worked tirelessly to get the CDI in a strong growing position. And it's really good to know that our professional organisation will go from strength to strength, even greater strength. Many thanks, David, for spending time with us. So I think that's probably sums up really how we feel. So thank you.
Fantastic. So that was the CDI news. We're going to be including all of the relevant links on the resources document, which I'm going to be posting on the Facebook community of practice shortly after the show finishes. We've got some kind of general news stories as well, which we think will definitely be of interest, which again, we're going to include in the show resources doc. Got a really useful Twitter thread from Tony Wilson at the Institute for Employment Studies around what's happening in Australia, particularly around kind of economic recovery, how that's balanced out against the increase in long-term unemployment. So some things to watch out for there in terms of the career development work that we're going to be doing. There's some useful kind of articles about how the government task force has looked at flexible working recommendations. So again, something that may well affect all of us, no matter what sort of area we work in as well. And we've also got kind of a piece, we couldn't really miss it out, about the announcement this week from the Office for Students about the proposed cuts to high cost, what we're calling non-strategic courses, so performing arts, music, etc. Actually, some of the news articles have been a bit sensationalist around it, but the headline is, I guess in context, relatively minimal amounts of cuts to funding for higher education courses of those nature. But having said that, there's some quite worrying implications down along the line in terms of who will be able to afford arts-based courses kind of in the future. And really, I suppose, just in terms of government intentions around kind of creative arts and performing arts courses. So some really kind of useful commentary to read there if you're working with sort of young people from that background or adult professionals from that background, really worth kind of keeping an eye on. We've also got the latest kind of career guidance for social justice blog. And that's actually from Oliver Jenkin and Barnaby Ridge, talking about a project they've worked on with young people in Cornwall. So again, we'll include all of those resources in the show resources doc. Keep an eye out for that on the Facebook community of practice. But that pretty much nicely brings us to the end of the show. In 2 weeks' time, Sabiha will be back. I'll say goodbye to Vic, who's been an absolutely brilliant co-host, but hopefully have you back again at some point in the future. And in 2 weeks' time, we're going to be leading on a little bit from what David mentioned in one of his comments. We're going to be talking about how politics plays a part in our work as career development professionals, and we're going to be joined by the fantastic Dr. Deirdre Hughes. So we're really, really looking forward to that one, and of course having Sabiha back with us as well. So all that remains to be said is thank you very much to David for joining us.
Thank you, lovely to be here. Sorry, I still was on mute. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Thanks to Vic for being a brilliant co-host.
Thanks, everyone. It's been great. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. And thanks very much to everyone who's kind of been watching on Facebook, on YouTube. If you're watching us back on record, thanks for watching us as well. And do feel free to keep engaging in the Facebook chat after we've finished. Have a great week, whatever you're up to, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Take care.
Cheers.